and then we'll get straight into questions because we have quite a few, I am sure. So take it away, whoever wants to go first, please.
I guess I'll start first. I'm unmuted. I'm Kathryn Golab. I am a second-year DCLS student at Rutgers University. I'm currently a level 2 medical scientist at Frederick the Medical College in Wisconsin.
Hello, my name is Eddie Salazar. I am the program director for the University of Texas Medical Branch Doctorate in Clinical Lab Sciences program.
I'm Lindsey Davenport-Landry. I am a DCLS resident through Rutgers, and I also received my master's through Rutgers a few years ago. I am Chief Medical Technologist at the Iowa City VA.
And I'm Dr. Brandy Consolis, DCLS graduate from Rutgers University 2018, practicing DCLS at AU Medical Center in Augusta, Georgia.
Thank you guys so much. Oh, sorry, I'm having lag. Thank you guys so much. Basically, at this point, guys, we just kind of open up for questions. So you can either unmute yourself and ask a question, or you can put it in the chat and we'll be monitoring the chat and I will just read them out. Just another letting you know this is broadcast live through YouTube. So if you don't want your face on YouTube, turn off your camera and then just unmute yourself. But feel free to either unmute yourself and ask a question or type it in the chat. We'll get started. Who wants to go first? Okay, we have our first question in the chat. It is, how long does it take to become a DCLS?
Oh, well, I think it depends on each person. I'll start on that, but so I actually started getting my master's through Rutgers first, and I completed that in 2014, and that took me about 4 years because I went part-time the entire time. Then I started, after my twins were born, I started going back and doing more work towards the DCLS. However, I also did that part-time until this year where I'm doing full-time residency. So all in all, it's taking me about 10 years, but I've done it part-time. So I think it varies for everybody.
So my path is a little bit different than both Lindsey's and Brandy's. I don't have my master's degree. I went straight from bachelor's degree to the bench. I have the 3 years of experience that is needed to be a DCLS when I applied. And I got accepted right away into Rutgers. It's about a 5-year program for me part-time. So part-time, I'm doing all the schoolwork, the didactic portion, and then my final year, as Lindsey stated, was a 1-year full-time immersive residency. So I would not be working any other job at that point.
For me, I went part-time. I got my master's first. It took me 7 years total in order to do that. I know that Renee is not on here from Kansas University Medical Center. They have their part-time, I believe, is 6 years, 6 or 7 years, but they do have a full-time option that is 3 years over there. Eddie, you want to talk about UTMB?
Yep, sure do. For full-time, it can be completed in 3 years. That's completing 9 credit hours per semester. We also do offer a part-time, and that's about 4 years. We do take transfer credit from master's degree, so that can also play a role in reducing your amount of time in the program. So average student for us are typically full-time, and they do hold different job positions. So about 3.5 years.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. So this question was specifically for Brandy, but I feel like some of you may also have input, but it says, did your facility have to create a position for you?
So yes, my facility did create a position for me. It is the facility that I had done my residency through. So I have actually been there now 3.5 years, if you include the residency year. They also created a position for the second DCLS resident that they took on. And so now there's 2 DCLS at AU Medical Center, and they're actually looking to hire 3 more. So that there are job possibilities that are out there, definitely at my facility. Anybody else wants to chime in on that? I know it was directed to me, but.
I can say something. So I work for the VA, and we are actually looking at creating a position description under either the 645 series or 601, so that there could be a DCLS at any facility within the VA. It's still in the baby stages, but we know that there's interest out there. So we're working on developing that right now. So. Of course, I have stolen Brandy's position description to help. You know, she did a lot of legwork already, so hopefully we can take some of that verbiage and use it. So.
And I know my facility, speaking with the director and chair of pathology, they are looking to build that position at my facility as well. They wanted someone to do test utilization, and they feel that the DCLS fits perfectly into test utilization at academic medical centers. So if you do go into the field and you look for places, academic places will most likely be willing to build a spot for you.
I want to agree with that. I actually hired 2 DCLS into faculty positions at UTMB. And we're also working with pathology with Dr. Michael Laposada to create a position that is a joint position between the clinical and the academic side. So this individual will be responsible for leading diagnostic management teams, clinical rounds, and also have an academic appointment as well.
Awesome, thank you. I have a quick just kind of segue on that one. Do you guys, are your facilities, particularly you, Brandy, who are your facilities hiring 5 people, are your facilities willing to discuss with other hospitals what they've found as a benefit to this?
Yes, they are. For anyone that saw my presentation, it wasn't this past summer, it was the summer before that at ASCLS National. I actually had about 10 clinicians that did some videos about, you know, what improvements have come about by having DCLS on site. And it's been very positive. I know that my chief clinical pathologist, or Dr. Singh, that he has actually had some conversations with a couple of other pathologists from other institutions about the DCLS and the potential for those other institutions for creating DCLS positions at their facilities. So they are very much wanting to help this expand and improve in other facilities the same way it has at ours.
Awesome, thank you. So Marley asks, what does an average day look like for a DCLS? And then also, what career opportunities are available to a DCLS?
So I'll give you what an average day looked like pre-COVID, and then there's the average day post-COVID. Pre-COVID, there was did rounding with various patient care teams. My focus was a lot in critical care. So I spend a lot of time with the medical ICUs, with the cardiac ICUs, the surgical ICUs, and then I call my babies, and that's my family medicine residents. I love my family medicine residents, but I do rounding. I also do teaching, and I still teach in family medicine every week. Doing a lot of test utilization coming up with algorithms, with new utilization rules, just meeting with physicians through various services on how to improve service delivery, how to improve relations between different departments. And more and more, it's been answering phone calls and emails and requests for consults. We do have a very rudimentary DMT at AU Medical Center. It is not as structured as the ones at UTMB. UTMB has got the DMTs down pat. They are like the, the gods of DMT, okay? Sorry, Eddie, y'all are. And that has been more of an IT issue with us trying to get a lot of that stuff worked out. But we are doing more of the one-on-one type of consults than as a team. We do some stuff as a team as far as the diagnostic management teams, but because it's very rudimentary and not as structured as what UTMB has, it's a little bit different. It has a different look to it than what the students that have gone through UTMB have seen. Or if they've seen presentations by Dr. La Posada, it does look a little bit different because it is very rudimentary, but that was pre-COVID. Post-COVID, I have been really tasked by hospital leadership to kind of oversee the entire pathology COVID effort and really interlink that with all of the different services. So I am part of the COVID critical care task force team. And so working with getting COVID patients throughput through the hospital, making sure that we're not doing additional testing that we don't need to do specific with those COVID patients. Been doing a lot of work ensuring that we're meeting all the new regulatory guidelines as far as the COVID reporting, a lot of IT, and anyone who's been working during COVID knows that the situation changes from week to week, and we never know what HHS and CMS is going to throw at us this week as a new regulatory requirement or reimbursement change or coding change or whatever it may be. So I have been tasked with that. I am still doing quite a lot of answering phone calls and emails. In fact, I had one not but an hour ago here about, a physician wanted a hemoglobin A1C and, patient doesn't have normal hemoglobin A chain, so you need a fructosamine. Well, I want my A1C. No, you're gonna get a fructosamine. So it's still doing a lot of those consults. Not able to round as often as I used to because of the demands with COVID, which is also part of why they're wanting to hire more DCLS because they want us to be rounding with a lot of the teams on a daily basis.
I'll talk a little bit about kind of what I'm doing as a resident. So I have an 83-bed hospital and we have 13 clinics that also report to our facility. And what I spend most of my day doing is looking at utilization review. So every day with the sendouts, I kind of look over anything that's not kind of a normal sendout that might need additional review. For example, if we have something that just hasn't been ordered before, so I'll look into why they're ordering it or what is the need, make sure it's actually appropriate for the patient. We can make sure that the patient gets the correct test at the right time. And then if it's not the right test, we can save the facility money and save the patient the poke. So I spend a lot of my time doing that and then also collecting the data. So they want to see what our worth is. So we're putting that into what we call a DCT or a data collection tool. And we're actually tracking all of our chart review and all of our decisions. And so pre-COVID, it was probably a little bit different, like Brandy said, but because it's COVID, our COVID testing isn't sent out. However, our test volume has definitely decreased for other testing. So I've been involved with COVID planning, explaining to providers the differences in the types of testing, like a rapid test and real-time PCR versus antigen testing versus antibody testing. It's things that we take for granted that we know, but a lot of providers have never had really any lab medicine. So they need to be explained to why things are occurring. So a lot of resident education and even the attending providers sometimes just need to brush up. So I spend a lot of time doing that as well. Also, we have projects that we work on during the residency. And so we're doing those templates. And we also work with the CIRT, so the Consumer Information Response Team for ASCLS, and we answer questions for them every week. So we keep pretty busy. I'm also working, which is not necessarily recommended. I'm not sure I'd recommend that to anybody. But with COVID happening, it was kind of hard to tell my lab to find somebody else. So that's what I'm doing. Eddie, do you want to talk about how yours is structured for residents, or?
Yeah, I can speak into regarding their rotations and touch a little bit about what those that are practicing are doing. As far as our clinical rotations are interspersed throughout the curriculum, as opposed to the other programs where they do, I believe, a one-year residency towards the end. And so we have them set up in different competencies, and what that means is the first and second rotation, there's certain level of expectations. They get to participate in the various diagnostic management teams. And of course, as you know, the theme here is with a pandemic, we have moved those to a virtual environment. Still, again, we're able to access all the items that we need in order to perform those consults. Students also rotate through the different clinical departments, such as internal medicine, obstetrics and gynecology. We go through psychiatry. We also go through family, geriatrics, and a specialty in nephrology. And so the students have competencies, again, set up in those areas to be able to round with the teams, provide laboratory-specific interpretations and recommendations to those folks. And they also act as a liaison between the clinical lab. And so one of the items that we have is we have the students get very familiar with the clinical laboratories that we have on campus. So then again, they can be that conduit between the clinical floor and the labs. So it's a very immersed, it's a Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, but quite a bit of time it spills over in the sense that they have to do items to prepare for the next day and so forth, and a lot of the follow-ups. As far as I think the question a day in the DCLS, the jobs that our graduates have gone and obtained are a little bit different. So I'm really happy to hear that, Brandy, that you have some specific DCLS positions open, so folks can go and apply specifically for those. But what I tell my students, prospective students, are that if you go to jobs.com or any of those sites, you really won't find a whole lot of DCLS specific positions. So we look for folks that are very proactive, and as a matter of fact, I have graduates that have found positions that do not say DCLS, but as part of the negotiation of applying and obtaining that job, that you let them know, you interview them as well and let them know what items you can bring to the table. And I can report that a year out for these graduates obtaining those kinds of jobs, they're able to make that inroads where they're at. And they're able to show how they're able to improve patient outcomes and do cost reduction, cost savings at their institution. So that has been a very positive note for individuals, again, that did not get a DCLS specific job, but are able to on a daily basis show how they can. I also tell my students that, and prospective students, that if academics is an area that you are interested in, you will find a job as more academia pushes to have faculty with earned doctoral degrees. And this is a terminal degree for us. So the best of both worlds here as an academic health science center, we are working to, again, as I mentioned, the position we're creating to have a foot in the clinical world and a foot in the academic world and scholarly world. So a lot of opportunity there. And I really urge for those of you that are here interested to follow folks and what they do and make your own path. This is the time to do it.
And to piggyback a little bit what Eddie said, you can search for DCLS jobs. You're not going to find them. It costs money for facilities to advertise for jobs. So, the facilities know that there's a very, very limited pool of graduates out there. They're not going to spend money to advertise for jobs. Instead, they're going to contact programs. They're going to contact other graduates and say, hey, who do you know that it's available? I want to talk to that person. They're going to contact the schools and say, hey, who do you have graduating? I want a DCLS. So you're not going to see advertisements. My guess is it's going to be at least 5 years before you actually start to see advertisements that are directly for just a DCLS. You may see some DCLS listed in, I did see an advertisement that listed DCLS that was an academic position, but it was one of the degrees that they would accept for that academic position. So I did see that. But as far as a clinical, in an academic medical center, you're not going to see that for several years.
Awesome. Here's a question that's probably one that most people are fearful to ask, but does the pay justify the school debt?
Well, we don't really know yet, do we? There aren't very many DCLSs out there making money, so it's hard to, have a benchmark of what we're worth. So that's what we're trying to prove right now is our worth. We can show them with the data how much we're saving the facility. They can see what we're doing to offset some of the clinical pathologists' workload. And we know what they pay the clinical pathologists. So well, I don't think they're going to pay the DCLS at this point that much money, depending on your facility, of course. We are seeing them pay more than they are paying like a clinical chemist or a microbiology PhD. We're seeing in that area or a little bit more depending on the facility that the person is at or, how big the hospital is. But you guys want to comment on anything that you guys know out there?
I'm not going to necessarily comment on the pay because I have absolutely no experience in that. I'm only a student. However, I will say, do not let the fear of the debt keep you from what you're passionate about. If this is something that you want to do, if this is something that you feel like you can have an impact in, go for it. Because I came out of undergrad debt-free. The fear of taking out a loan for school terrorized me. But I still did it because I know that this is where I can make the biggest impact in healthcare with what I know and what I can do. So don't let the fear of going into debt for school stop you from doing this if it's what you want to do.
And I can't reveal exactly how much I make because I'm bound by contract to not do that. I can say that it is above 6 figures, which in Georgia is actually, really good. And as far as being hired, it's only been 2 years. I have already received a significant pay raise because of what I've been able to prove at my facility. And there's also other perks, I guess you could say. I work at a public academic medical center, and so I am in the public service loan forgiveness program. So after 10 years of making, my payments, everything beyond that will be forgiven. Yeah, there's the word. Sorry, it gets late, long day.
And a lot of facilities have education debt repayment. If you give them so many years of service, they'll pay back your loans or they'll give you so much per year for education. That's why I did part of my master's part-time, because they would give us like $4,000 a year for coursework. Mm-hmm. So.
And I want to chime in as well. So as far as creating a position, as we approach our business partners to create the position, that's one of the questions that we've been asked is where do you want to set the salary? And we've been looking at the advanced practice individuals. And so it is most definitely in line, as Brandy said, definitely above 6 figures. I don't have an exact number, but I do have a range of anywhere from 130 to 150. And that's what we're working with. We don't have that, and that's here in Texas in an academic health science center. I also do report that graduates that have gone, while I don't have an exact number, I do know those positions do start off with a component that is, again, as I mentioned there, your clinical consultant, but also lab director. So there's additional duties, and those again are at the high end of an advanced practitioner. So my 2 cents as far as the question about debt, I am such a advocate for students to apply for every scholarship there's available. And I will tell you, with a DCLS, the folks that get into these programs are very proactive. They very much are into service. They are very much into mentorship. And when you get into these roles, there's many avenues that make you a competitive applicant to these scholarships. And I can say that several students have received full rides, and a lot of them have received help and aid. So the opportunities are out there, as Kathryn mentioned. Don't let that keep you from that, because there are opportunities out there, and I do believe that it will. Again, you shouldn't. This is my personal opinion. Shouldn't let the salary drive for you to want to do this, but it will be there, and I believe it'll be worth it.
Thank you so much, guys. So our next one is, does the master's degree have to be in a clinical science, or do any credits from an MBA also count?
Eddie, do you want to take that one for your program?
Sure. So there's a couple of avenues here. If you have a master's in medical laboratory sciences, that's the easiest to get courses transferred over. UT has a 7 credit hour max from outside. So that'll get you about 2 classes. But what I want to say about those having earned a master's degree, it does give you an advantage in the sense that you have navigated those graduate courses of, particularly if you've done one with a thesis, you've learned how to navigate articles, you learn how to write scientifically, you understand a 5-chapter work: introduction, lit review, methodology, results, discussion / conclusion. You understand that lingo. You can, it's much easier for you to be able to go and pull evidence to provide evidence-based consults. As far as the other master's degrees, again, if it's in biology, chemistry or such, I'm sure we'll be able to find some courses that could transfer over and does reduce your load. The MBA, unless you took something that was specific, and sometimes they're management courses, it depends on what the course description was. I have had some that are close enough that they deal with laboratory management, but otherwise it's rather difficult to give you credit for those. So it's one of those on the individual basis. I also urge you to look to see what electives you have taken. Some of them may connect. A lot of folks, for example, statistics or biostatistics, research design, some of those may be transferable, but sometimes I even urge you not to transfer them, as it may be some time since you took those courses, especially things like stats. So it all depends your situation, and the best I would recommend for any prospective students to really talk to those advisors at each program to see how that fits for you.
Yeah, and I think that sounds pretty much the same at both Rutgers and KUMC, that there's a limited number that can be transferred in from a master's degree, and an MBA, just like Eddie said, unless it was very specific towards a lab management, likely not, but there may be some other courses that might transfer over.
One thing I can add to that, though, however, is if you have your master's through Rutgers, a lot of the coursework for the DCLS and the master's overlap. Obviously, there's additional coursework for the DCLS, so all of those can transfer in if you do continue. And somebody asked in the question box, like why the master's or the DCLS. Well, for quite a while, there wasn't the DCLS. So you worked on your master's, and now we have both options. So it kind of depends on what your passion is. If you really just want to learn more about the technical end, the master's might be the way, because you learn a lot more about the clinical aspects and things that more focus on the bench work sometimes and diagnostics. And with the DCLS, you also are learning kind of the clinical background and how that relates to clinical diagnosis. At least that's my take.
Lindsey, that's a really good point. I'll piggyback in the sense that I get prospective students that, one, are not sure if that's the area they want to go in, or it is very competitive to get in. So if you, or for those that don't have, for us, we require a minimum of 3 years of MLS certified experience to be to apply to the program. So you can go straight into master's right after graduating from your BSCLS MLS. And already start earning credits. For us, it's up to 17 credit hours can transfer in. They're graduate courses directly applicable, so 100% agree with that, but it exposes you to the graduate environment, and it further gives you an idea if it's something that you want to do or not.
And
it also, sorry, Kathryn.
I'm going to piggyback off of that because there's a question directed at me in the chat that I can piggyback off of Eddie for. They asked, someone said they were a final year MLS going into DCLS, and they asked if they need to have 3 years of experience. Yes, all 3 programs require you to have a minimum of 3 years generalist experience with an MLS. Granted, mine wasn't a full 3 years generalist. I worked core lab, but I did have to have 3 years of experience at time of acceptance to applying. Directly going in without a master's, it's kind of about how much you know you can take. Graduate level courses are intense. They're a lot of work. You have to have really good time management. That's going to be big. If you know you're not a great time management person, there may be some struggles. As Eddie said, if you want to go think, it's like, oh, I want to go into something right after school. I want to go up into management. I might want to go for my DCLS. And you know that coming out of school, definitely try and jump right in on the master's, because that might give you the basis of, okay, I want to go into management. I want to go in on the technical side, or I want to go DCLS and I want to be on the clinical side. And that helps you figure out what you want to do. How's the workload? It all depends on the program. Nadine at Rutgers, she does a great job of helping us balance our coursework, picking what classes go really well together. I'm doing it part-time, so I take 2 classes a semester. 2 classes a semester is about what you can take if you are working full-time, because that's at least 12 hours a week per course that you're putting in. So that's at least 24 hours of time outside of work per week that you're putting into school. I usually do more than that. If I'm not working the weekend, I'm spending at least 8 hours on the weekend doing homework. That includes, of course, 3 to 4 hours a night after school. After this, I'm going back to homework. So, because the end of the semester is coming up. So it is a decent amount of workload, but I know now that the end justifies the means. Yeah, I might have a lot of work right now, but going into clinical practice, I know that this hard work is going to pay off. So it all kind of balances out over time.
There's also a question in there about, work-life balance. And, that is a huge thing. Do I spend time with the kids? Do I study? Am I at work? And you have to create a schedule. With COVID, I have gotten off schedule. And, last week I got a little talking to from my advisor saying, hey, you're not paying enough attention to this particular thing. Like, let's look at this. And the kids are working from home. I say working from home. The kids are going to school online. So, evenings are also spent doing kindergarten homework. They can't read. I have to help them. So, you have to find your balance and figure out how much you can take at a time. With the residency, it is full-time for Rutgers. And then you have big sections where you need to have your time allocated appropriately for UTMB. Like, you're going to have a 6 weeks rotation. You need to make sure that, you don't have a vacation scheduled for 2 of that, right? But I think if you are already working, if you've already gone back to school, we're medical laboratory scientists. We're usually pretty good at multitasking. So I think that most people can handle it. You just have to be willing to stay up late and read that chapter.
I'll speak to that also. COVID has kind of thrown a wrench in everything, where work-life balance really doesn't happen for medical laboratory scientists or someone who has kids at home. You know, one of my coworkers, she dropped down to casual because she had to homeschool her kids, but she still wanted to be able to work a little bit. My favorite thing is your planner will be your best friend. My planner goes everywhere with me. It's all color coded. I write in it what I need to do every single day. And I'm at the point where usually by the end of the semester, I'm writing down when I have to do laundry in my planner, because if I don't put it in my planner, I'm going to forget to do it. So eventually, you know, it balances out and you figure out where your points are. But it's about making the time. If I wanted to go and see my family, I will move stuff around in my schedule to make sure that I can go and see my parents. So that way then, you know, I'm not neglecting them. But then again, I'm single. I live at home by myself with my cat, who's running around like a mad woman downstairs. I don't have the family necessarily to balance with it right now, but Brandy and Lindsey both balance their family fairly well. So.
And as far as practicing and work-life balance, pre-COVID was much easier. Typically, you know, it was a 9 or 10 hour day, 5 days a week. I might take, you know, a handful of phone calls over the weekend, but generally it was nothing major. COVID is 7 days a week. I've been 7 days a week since March 8th. And it is nothing for me to get a phone call from the chief medical officer at 10 o'clock at night. It has been, there is no work-life balance during COVID. And I was about to say I could see the light at the end of the tunnel, but it is so dim that I can't, I'm not sure if it's really there. But things will eventually calm down. We will find our new version. You know, I'm very optimistic about maybe a year and a half, 2 years from now with vaccine that we might have some semblance of normalcy.
Brandy, so that's actually something else that was in the chat window, was a good question about you know, how are other people in the facility kind of, or like the medical profession, looking at DCLSs? You said your CMO calls you at home, right? So he must be trusting some of your decisions. Yeah, I've definitely gotten more calls from around the hospital this year and been invited to more meetings. We always kind of laugh because, you know, pharmacy, laboratory, and radiology often aren't invited to the table to make decisions. And this year, I think they've really realized what our worth is as medical laboratory professionals, and started calling us first or asking us, you know, hey, what do you think? I was invited to a vaccine call today. I showed up, but I was like, why am I on the vaccine call? You know, but they wanted to make sure I was informed and what was going forward. So, you know, it's a paradigm shift.
I'm on the vaccine calls from my facility. So.
Well, and I'll piggyback off of it because the question was, do you feel any negativity from pathologists or other MDDOs? Find a facility, I think, that really appreciates it. Every pathologist that I've talked to at my facility wants somebody else besides them to deal with test utilization and appropriate ordering. They don't want to do it. And if I talk to the residents all the time, and the moment I say that want to do utilization review, they're like, oh, thank God, somebody else is doing this. So if you find that you're going to a facility and they have a very negative view of it, then maybe that's not the facility for you to work at. It's not necessarily about changing everybody's perspective. It's finding a place that's accepting of it and then branching out of that and changing the perspective from a positive relationship. Oh, good God.
So with that, I'm going to skip down to this question. Could you discuss personality traits you've found in yourself or seen in colleagues that lend themselves well to this field?
So I will tell you that this is not for everybody. When you get calls from physicians, sometimes they're very nice, and they're like, hey, I really need some help. I'm not really sure what to do.
Are you saying that the DCLS graduates you into the thick skin club?
Yes. Yes. You have to realize that you are now the face of the laboratory and even the face of pathology for the rest of the hospital. The pathologists over time do not generally, I know that there's some that do, but generally they do not get out and are not really seen as much among the rest of the services. And so you have now become the face of pathology for the entire institution, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And once you realize that when that physician is yelling at you or complaining to you or has written you this hateful letter about a situation, it's not that they're upset with you. They are upset with the situation. They're upset because something didn't work right with their patient, and they're actually coming to you to fix it and to help them. You've got to have a thick skin. Lab inherently attracts a lot of introverts. We attract a lot of people that don't like to have confrontation, that do not like to have a lot of out there and speaking freely. And like Kathryn, Lindsey, and I, we're very easy to speak up and speak in front of groups and everything. Most people in the laboratory are not that way. So you will need to be able to do more public speaking, be able to speak in front of groups, be able to speak in front of colleagues, speak with conviction, because they understand if you're not really sure about something and if you say, you know what, I really don't know, but I'm going to go look that up, they completely get it. Because, oh man, I really don't. Oh, I'm going to, they start to waver in your trust.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, you really need to have confidence. You need to have good communication skills, and you need to have a thick skin.
Well, and definitely if this is something like a personality trait that I found in myself, I'm very driven. If I want to do something, I'm going to do it. And I've, gotten out there, and I have friends all over the hospital. I'm not even a DCLS yet. And the head of hematologic oncology knows my name and knows who I am and knows what I'm doing. And the head of the inpatient procedure service at my hospital knows who I am. He follows me on Twitter. He knows what I am doing. There are people all over the hospital who know about what I'm doing already. And I've actually had a doctor call in, and he was upset about something. And I'm just like, oh, here, let me take the phone call. And I picked it up, introduced myself, and he's like, oh, thank God it's you. You can fix this. So as soon this is something you want to do, start branching out, start getting your name out there, start working with other departments if you can. So I work with pathology and I work with hem-onc a lot because I have an interest in acute leukemias. So I work with them on my poster presentations or on different case write-ups that I'm doing. Anything you can do to kind of get yourself out there and kind of like spread the word about yourself and be, open and driven about it, do, because I think that will benefit you in the long run.
For sure. And one of the items that I'll say is I look at our students and how they navigate the environment. There's something I would definitely say that is outstanding for somebody to be an effective DCLS. That's to have a high level of emotional intelligence, be very proactive, provide constructive criticism, and be able to take constructive criticism. As both Brandy and Kathryn have said, the thick skin is a must, and we do attract a lot of introverts. You cannot stand and be a wallflower. You have to be able to put yourself, you have to be able to find ways to be part of the conversations. The opportunities already exist, but being proactive, being prepared, and again, trust is something that you will gain. They will respect you if you show up with evidence and and of course, if you know what you're talking about. So those are the things that I would say. But overall, the emotional intelligence is the number one trait that I see in successful students.
So when you go up to round on the floors, you do need to be able to speak up, and you need to be able to ask that question, or not always answer the question, but sometimes ask the question, like what is it that you're trying to determine, to help you decide. But if you're unable to ask those questions, of a provider, then it might not be for you. So if you ever have an opportunity, or are thinking about something like the DCLS, see if you can find a clinical pharmacist in your facility and ask around with them for a day. You can see kind of how they interact with the team. And that is kind of what we do for laboratory. Obviously not about medications, but about the laboratory testing that and the results that come back. So that's somebody we can kind of model ourselves after a little bit, and part of being that interdisciplinary team. But I think that, being able to ask the questions, ask the hard questions, to people you might not be necessarily friends with yet, or, sometimes you're not ever friends with them, but somebody you can build a good rapport with.
Awesome. Thank you. Unfortunately, we only have time for one more question. So we're actually going to ask this one. Do you think there will eventually be a need for a board of certification for DCLS?
Eddie, do you want to talk about that?
Absolutely, I'm happy to, and that's a great question. I will place that as one of my top 5 questions that I get asked. So, yes, absolutely, it's already coming on the way. As you know, ASCLS is working with ASCP, and they're waiting to have enough graduates to do a practice analysis to develop this BOC so that it can be reflective of what practicing DCLS are doing. Yes, it is something that both individuals that are going out and applying for positions, as we forge our relationships in our network, it's something that comes up on a professional level. And so I definitely see a place for it. And I think it will be here. It is going to take some time. They've quoted they need anywhere from 30 to 50 graduates in order to be able to do the assessment. And with our calculations, we think that'll happen within the next 4 to 5 years or so. But I am very much pro BOC, and I think it's needed.
So we're one of the few professions, that is not licensed. And if we didn't have a board, then we might not have as much a foot to stand on as well, because everyone else takes their boards, right? So we are working with ASCLS and the DCLS committee. And have you ever heard of the entry-level curriculum? These are the things that people need to know coming out of medical technology school. And we're working on the body of knowledge for the DCLS. It's been an ongoing process for a few years, and we're getting very close to actually finishing that. With that, and with some of the case analysis that Eddie was talking about, the Board of Certification will review this and work to create the boards for the DCLS. I actually thought maybe Ms. Tanabe was asking that question just to throw it out there, but I mean, there's been a lot of discussion about this for the last few years, so they are in the works. We don't have a date obviously yet, because there's a lot of work to do, and we have to decide how are we going to test the person in the DCLS position. It's a clinical doctorate. So do you ask them questions like case studies? How are we going to do that? So there's quite a bit left into that, but I do overall think that there does need to be a board someday.
And that's one of the biggest things that I've also noticed. One of the biggest reservations that some people have at my facility with the DCLS is that I will not be licensed. I will be certified. And they're just like, well, anybody who's anybody in medicine is licensed. So I don't know if that's something coming down the road as well, but the Board of Certification is at least a foothold to get us to where we need to be to establish ourselves in the clinical care team.
Yes, one of the things that we've already run into at my facility is being able to bill for consultations that we perform. And you cannot bill without an NPI number. You cannot get an NPI number without being board certified. So there's a number of steps to do. We have to get a board certification exam. Then we have to petition to allow us to be able to get national provider identification numbers. And then we can petition for CMS and the various insurance companies to then reimburse us for our services. Right now, our value is based off of how much cost savings and improved quality and improved patient safety that we perform. It's not based off of the reimbursements, but you know, every little bit helps, and being able to bill for the consultations that we provide is a long-term goal. It's going to take probably a decade or more to get there, but it's definitely a goal.
Thank you guys so much. This is always a hot and popular topic. So thank you for donating your time so late in the evening for us. Unfortunately, that little time turner has stopped, and we are going to have to draw it to a close. But I did want to ask if you're comfortable or if you're interested. The chat is not going to go on YouTube. So if you want to drop your contact information in the chat, if you would be willing to, in all those ample hours that you have available to you in your off time, answer any other questions. If not, we totally get it. 7 days a week is a lot, Miss Brandy. So yeah, I think that's going to conclude us for the evening. And thank you so, so much for being a part of our panel.
Thanks for organizing this.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everyone have a wonderful, wonderful holiday. Be safe out there.